Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The attacker's hands were already shaking when Lear got his revolver back. That came later. First there was the cold and the chain and a woman who had not heard her own name spoken aloud in years. Artistes L4 had been a colony for artists once, painters, composers, sculptors from across the systems, drawn by the promise of something rare, space to make without consequence. That was before the funding collapsed, before the evacuation ships loaded, before the authorities decided that certain kinds of making were too dangerous to transport. The domes stood fractured now. Wind moved through exhibition halls where murals were peeling back to bare concrete, reclaiming their silence the way snow reclaims a footprint. Lear had come with a scanner, a revolver, and a question he couldn't quite articulate. He had been an artist once, too, in a different kind of life. He wanted to know if anything honest had survived the abandonment. He had not expected the breathing. He heard it from 2 rooms away, faint, careful, practiced in the way of something that had learned not to be noticed. He followed it with his weapon drawn. Behind a collapsed display frame, a young woman sat with her back against the wall. Blue skin, frost-matted hair, a rusted chain running from a collar at her throat to a bolt in the concrete behind her. When she saw the revolver, she made herself smaller. She did not beg, she only said, "If you're doing it, do it quickly. I've had enough of waiting." Lear lowered the gun. He set it on the floor. He unbuttoned his insulated coat and placed it within her reach, then moved to the far side of the room without saying anything else. He pulled dry wreckage into a basin, built a fire from it. His last ration went beside the flames. He turned away and looked at an old mural while he heard the wrapper open. The chain came next. He had a cutter in his kit. He held it up so she could see it clearly, only the chain. She was silent for a long time. Then she nodded once. The corroded fastening snapped, and the links hit the floor with a sound that seemed too small for what it meant. She sat with the loose chain in her lap and did not move, did not run. "You can go wherever you want," Lear said. She looked at him. "Then why am I still afraid?" He had spent years with a version of that question. "Because the door being open and feeling free aren't always the same event," he said. "One happens outside you, the other takes longer." She did not answer, but she kept the coat. By the time Lear returned, 2 nutrient packs in one hand, a glowing thermal cell in the other, orange heat already bleeding into the cold gallery air. The woman had not moved far from where he'd left her. She watched him set down the supplies. Her eyes stayed on him the way eyes do when they're tallying something, calculating the probability of a thing repeating. "I told you I'd come back," he said. "Others said things, too." He sat across from her and broke open one of the packs. "That sounds like their failure." She was quiet. "Then they called me Subject 31. Another failure." Something in her face shifted, not quite a smile, but the muscle memory of one. She said, "You're not going to ask what I actually am." "Not until you want to tell me." The storm arrived that evening. Snow packed the broken doors until the cold outside became abstract, a fact rather than a feeling. They sat close enough for shared warmth. Lear had a sketchbook in his kit. He hadn't opened it in weeks, but his hand moved before he'd made a decision, and within a few minutes there was a figure on the paper. A woman beside a fire, wearing a coat 3 sizes too large, something careful and complicated in the line of her shoulders. She noticed, "That's me." "Yes." She studied it. "You made me look," she searched, held. "I drew what I saw." Her expression changed. "You don't know what I am." "Probably not." She waited. He said, "That doesn't change what I see." Later, when the wind was at its loudest, and there was nothing else to do but exist inside the sound of it, she said, "My name is Sanvi." He repeated it. She closed her eyes. She told him in pieces, the way people tell things they've never assembled into a single story. Her people made art that moved through the body rather than the eyes. Her father had worked with memory itself. shaping emotion into something others could hold in their hands and feel. Authorities called that dangerous. What Sanvi could do was different, more reflexive. She didn't create feeling. She reflected it. If something lived in you strongly enough, she could send it back to you, clear and undeniable, and let you feel the full weight of what you were already carrying. People hated that, she said, because it hurt. Because sometimes it was theirs, and they didn't want it back. Researchers took her when she was 15. Labs, new designations, eventual transfer to Artistes L4. When the colony evacuated, no one wanted to sign the paperwork for moving someone they'd classified as a threat. So they left her with the chain and the wall and the peeling murals. Lear listened without filling the silences. When she finished, he pulled a piece of canvas from his kit, sealed in protective film, small enough to fit in a palm. A single painted eye remained between scorched edges, brilliant blue, surrounded by char. "You painted wars," she said, reading something in how he held it. "For people who needed to look heroic, they paid well and gave me access to battlefields." He set the fragment down. Then I saw what a strike looked like when it was aimed at civilians accused of being psionic threats. My own paintings were part of the justification. I spoke publicly. They erased the words and kept the paintings. A pause. So I burned most of them. Sanvi touched the edge of the surviving fragment through its film. "You came here because this was built for artists. I wanted to know if anything honest made it through." She looked at the sketch he'd made of her, still open on the ground between them. He followed her gaze. "I'm starting to think," he said, "that something did." His scanner woke him before dawn. 3 contacts, professional equipment, closing from the east. 12 minutes. He packed fast. Sanvi was already standing. "I can help," she said. "I want you somewhere the rifles can't reach you." Her jaw tightened. "You broke one chain. That doesn't make you responsible for where I stand." "I know you're not helpless. I also know you're not replaceable." He met her eyes. "Those are different things." She went still. He led her into the collapsed interior section, then moved toward the main corridor alone. The first intruder came in under a scanning visor. Lear fired. The second and third answered from cover, forcing him back through service passages. He drove one back. The last caught him near a stairwell impact, the floor coming up hard, his revolver skidding across the ice. The man stood over him and raised his weapon. Then he stopped. Sanvi was in the corridor behind Lear. She'd followed anyway. She stood still, breathing hard, not advancing. The armed man's posture changed so completely, it looked like a different person had stepped into his body. The weapon dipped. His hands began to shake. "What are you doing to me?" he said. "Nothing," Sanvi said. "That wasn't already yours." His discipline collapsed faster than his legs. Lear recovered the revolver and made the decision that ended the threat. When silence came back, Sanvi leaned against the wall. Her hands were trembling. "I didn't put that fear into him." "I know." Lear got to his feet. "He brought it with him." She looked at him, exhausted and furious. "You asked me to stay back. You went alone. You almost." "You're right," he said. "That's all there is to say about it." They found the ship 2 days later, a courier vessel buried under snow and debris in an underground storage area, cerulean fox still legible along its hull. They repaired it together, trading tools back and forth in a silence that had become comfortable. By evening, the cabin had power. By the following morning, the engine turned over. Sanvi stood at the hatch before boarding. The broken colony spread out behind her, fractured domes, the gallery where a chain had lain on the floor for years waiting for someone to cut it. She had thought departure would feel like escape. It felt like something else, something that didn't have a clean name yet. Lear offered his hand. She looked at it. "You decided I was leaving." "I offered a hand. You decide what you do with it." She thought about that, then she took it. The cerulean fox shook through the atmosphere like something being born badly, and then leveled. and the shattered domes below became white shapes, and then just cloud, and then nothing at all. They set down on a dead agricultural moon 3 stops later, breathable air, ruins, patches of grass pushing through cracked stone. Behind a collapsed greenhouse, a lavender vine had threaded itself through a broken pane and was flowering in the open air, unhurried, unwitnessed until now. Sanvi crouched beside it. They left this place too. Leah looked at the vine. Apparently it had different plans. They climbed to a ridge above the settlement and sat while the light changed. Below them, the empty buildings held their silence. Sanvi said, "I'm still afraid of staying anywhere. I'm still afraid of making something I care about." She was quiet for a moment. Then she held out her hand, palm up, not the way you take something, the way you offer to hold it with someone. Leah opened the sketchbook. He drew the vine, the way it had pushed through the glass, the small extravagance of its flowers. Sanvi leaned over and added something beneath the drawing in her own script, careful characters that meant nothing to him yet. "What does it say?" She looked out at the ridge, the dead colony, the open sky beyond it. "Tomorrow." They built a small shelter near the ridge rather than returning to the ship. Their blankets lay side by side. Above them, no traffic, no signals, just stars doing what stars do, indifferent and permanent and close. On the ground between them, the sketchbook lay open, and in the morning light, the vine was still there on the page with Sanvi's word written under it, patient as a promise, waiting to be kept.